Hey there, it's Flowing Strength again. This is Kemetic Paganism 101. This is part 5 of this series, okay? So we've already talked about what Kemet means, okay? How did the land of Kemet get its name? Why am I saying Kemet instead of Egypt, okay? Also, we talked about the Habi River. By the way, that is the Nile. And we talked a little bit about creation story and where the people from ancient Kemet came from. Also talked a tiny bit about Nubia and Kush, okay? Those are very important, okay? So now we're going to get into the little fine details of the religion of Kemet, the spirituality, stuff like that, okay? So now most of you have not been taught the term Kemet or Kemetic, okay? You've been taught Egypt, right? So, if I said, okay, there's Hathor, Osiris, Isis, Sekhmet, Set, Anubis, Ammit, Khonsu, Thoth, okay? I just named off 9, you would say gods or deities, right? And then you're taught that there's 2 different types of religions. You have monotheistic and polytheistic. Monotheistic means one God. Polytheistic means many. Well, I just pushed out a whole bunch of names, right? That automatically means that Egyptian paganism, okay, using a term that most people would know, is polytheistic. This would be wrong. For Kemeticism, okay, that's a true name. It was going to go back, okay. Kemetic Paganism is not polytheistic at all, okay. It's not monotheistic either, okay. It's monolithic, okay. Remember how we talked about a tomb? Okay, you also can call him Amun-Ra. Okay, all of the deities, all of them, are an aspect of him. Some are part of his eye. Okay, Sekhmet, Hathor, those are part of his eyes. Others have just like almost separated from him, but are still part of him. Okay. And on some of them, they are him in a different form. For example, Kefra, Kefra-Ra, Ptah-Ra, Kuhum-Ra. Okay, those are all the same, but in different aspects or forms. Okay. Also, because of this, let's use Hathor. Hathor is in the morning, the wife. Sorry, in the morning, the mother. Sorry about that. The mother. In the afternoon, the wife. In the evening, the daughter. I know it sounds very confusing and stuff like that. Okay, so that's monolithic. Is, like I said, a whole bunch into one. Think about it as a vine of grapes. Okay, you have that that bunch of grapes, right? You have a whole bunch of individual grapes, right? But all those grapes are part of the one system. Okay. And this has a lot to do also with part of the Kemeticism of the all is one and the one is many. Okay. So, I hope you understand that. It's all into one, that is all. But they're all part of the one. Okay. Which is, like I said, Atumra, or, Artun. So, Now, let's also talk about other terms. So, in Kemetic paganism, we don't use the term gods or deities, okay? We use nature, or nature, okay, which is singular, or naturu, which is plural, okay? And basically, that term means nature. You can almost hear it, nature, right? So, and the reason why is because the ancient Kemetic people used nature and what they saw in nature and brought that into their belief system, okay? Like maybe they would see a dune bug, okay? So, like, you know, like a beetle, a dung beetle, for example, the kefra, okay? The kefera, it's basically looks like a dung beetle, okay? And they saw how this would take something that was considered a waste, okay, and take it somewhere else, and maybe they saw, hey, there was stuff growing off this because, you know, fertilizer. They didn't realize all the chemical and scientific aspects like we do today, okay? They just saw this and say, hey, you know, this thing right here, which was a waste, is helping cause life, okay? Of course, later on, we learned many different things, okay? They used what they had, okay? And also, you're watching like the river flood, okay? The Happy flood. By the way, Happy is also a name of one of the deities. And seeing how that right there, even though it caused destruction, okay, they noticed the destruction had to happen in order for new life to grow, okay? So they knew that there was a cycle of life and death, of destruction and rebuilding. Destruction and rebuilding, okay? Destruction and growth, you know, death and life, barren and growth. So they've seen all this. They also noticed about the sun going up. You know, to them, remember, they thought the sun was going around the earth. So they saw the sun rising. We still say the sun's rising, right? We don't say, well, the earth turned, the earth turned so we can see the sun. No, even though we know the earth is rotating is a reason why, and, doing a revolution, rotating, is the reason why we see the sun coming up from the east and going to the west, right? So, even though we know that, we still say the sun is right. We talk about the sunrise and the sunset, okay? We still have that concept in our minds. We still talk like that, even though we know that's not true. But what they saw it as is kefara, okay? Remember the dung beetle? It's pushing the sun up over the horizon, which means that Atum Ra, okay, has won his fight against Apophysis or Apep every night. Of course, he gets help with Set, because Set kills and chops up at Apophysis, Apep, but Apophysis, Apep always comes back together, is always stronger, okay? So they also knew that sooner or later, the sun going around the earth would stop. By the way, this is kind of true, but don't worry, it'll be about another 500, probably about 500,000 million years, so nothing we need to worry about. So they kind of knew all about that, but also they knew that when the sun was going through and stuff like that, how the seasons would change and things like that. And they'll also notice other things too. They started noticing the stars, okay? And they noticed that there was a certain star that would come up at the same place basically the same time of year, okay? And this is the Seer star, the dog star. And this is what they started their year up on. Remember that, okay? And so when they did that, but they also realized that where the star would come up would be a little different during the day, okay, every year. So they knew, wait a minute, this means that there's actually an extra day needs to be added every so many years. So they knew this, okay? And it's kind of interesting, okay? So yes, they did have a solar calendar, but they used a star to determine when the solar calendar started. So remember, netir means nature. Netru is plural. So we talk about the netru, basically talking about them all. And there are at least probably about 10,000 different Kemetic Neteru. Okay, some of them became an offshoot of another. Some of them got other abilities from previous Netchers. Some of them kind of just got forgotten. Okay, of course, one of them would be Heru or Horus the Outer. Most people think there's only one Horus, and they make a mistake of saying that Hadar, okay, was married to Horus. Yes, she was, but not. They think Horus the Younger because they think of only one. No, she was married to Horus the Outer. I know I did say that when the sun is up in the middle, okay, that she's like the wife of Atumra. Remember, all the deities are Atumra, okay? But also Atumra is married to Mut, but that's another story. But Hadar, okay, is married to Atum. Is married to Atum during the sun here, but she's truly married to Heru Horus the Outer, or the brother of Isis and Osiris, are Aset and Aser. Okay. By the way, as you notice, I will say a name of a Neteru, and it will give the Kemetic name and the Greek name. Okay, we were taught the Greek names. Okay, and what I'm trying to do is get you familiarized with the Kemetic names. Okay, the names that was used. Okay, so you already knew some of that. So Hadar Hator. Okay, Heru, Horus Heru. So, and this is very important. And also, a majority, okay, if it ends with, there's a T in the name, and it has a hyphen and something else, like hot, har, is HWT, HWR, okay? Really, there's no vowels, okay, in the Kemetic language. Those were added later, okay? That is feminine, okay? Or a set. See here the T? The T is usually represents femininity, okay? Without the T, not femininity. But we have set, which is masculinity, okay? But some people use Seth, so they put the H in the end. Same net here, okay? So Nevhet, okay? Have the T in the end. Sakmet, all set, okay? Those are all feminine energies, okay? You have Mut, then you have Nut, okay? Feminine energy, Geb, masculine. austere masculine, Anubis masculine. Anubis, by the way, his Kemetic name is Anpu. And some have more than one Kemetic name, by the way. But that's important. So the T represents femininity. Okay. By the way, Netur Netru, the U, okay, represents plurality, more than one. Okay. And so I hope you enjoyed this. Tomorrow, or probably a couple of days actually, I'm going to go and talk more about how the system of worship would work. Okay. There's, basically temples and stuff like that. It's really not that difficult, tell you the truth. The thing is that we live in a Western society, okay? And how we think about religion is combination of Christianity, hate to say this, okay, and our Western beliefs and how we raise. And it doesn't matter what you look like, okay? If you've been a part of Western society for more than 100 years, it's already affected you. And when I say use 100 years, I'm talking about your family ancestors. So if you and your family's been here in the United States or Europe, you've already been affected, and your mindset has already in that Western mentality. So we're going to talk about how you have to think beyond the Western mentality when it comes to Kemetic paganism. So I hope you have a great day. Again, like, share, subscribe. Tell me what you think. Please give me a comment or two. You'll have a great day.